let's see. Can I turn this round? I can. Yeah, you've gone. There you go. There we've got the pile of books which are in little orange. And this is where I'll be sitting. So let's see if we can get that set up. Hello, everyone. Basically, the Wi-Fi worked, but the YouTube didn't like where it was working. So I had to do some modifications. Let's position this about here so it's not staring at my unmentionables. Hello, everyone. How are we all doing? Hello. Right, I will get this chat set up so I can see the chat in a little bit. That's one of the few books I brought with me that's actually in the orange. Let's see, we've got Lloyd's List. Always good one. Safe to Dive. I think I've done that one. Harry Support. How is everyone? How are we all doing? Destroyers. Not sure if I've done. That one I've done. Keeping Ships at Sea I've done. Yeah, I've done a fair number of these books, but I'm sure I haven't done all of them. And, well, even if I have done them, I'll do them again. Castlemaine I think I will do again. That one I think I'll do again. Oh, that one's also in here. Hello. And Carrier Attack Darwin I think we'll do. Yeah, that is 6 books. Hello everyone, how are we all doing? Let's see if we can't see what's going on in the world. Now, live stream should show up on this thing now, and it should allow me to get into the chat. Yes, it should. Hello everyone. Hello, can you hear me? Well, I hope you can. God, I'm looking tubby today. Honestly, airline, food, travel, all these things I can make excuses for, but let's be honest, it's the naval history life. It's just, I'm just not spending enough time in the gym. I really haven't spent enough time in the gym. Let's do that. So that's going to be slightly better for angle of looking at books. And into that one. Make sure that's on a level. Yeah, that's about right. Tighten it up. Right then. Now, liquid. Because as much as I love you all, I'm not talking to you all without liquid refreshment. I'm fresh from my minibar and suitably chilled. I couldn't find Iron Brew, but I've got some Coke. Hello everyone, how are we all doing? Hello John Cover. Bit blinky, but audio is okay. Why is it blinking? Why is it blinking? It's from my phone. It shouldn't be blinking. Any suggestions for why it's blinking? Why would you be blinking, phony? What kind of setting is making you blink? Make sure no filters on. And yeah. Maybe the autofocus. It might be. I'm trying to turn it off. It doesn't seem to like the mirror behind me. Let me turn off. Still blinking. That appears to be less blinky, but still pretty interesting. if you don't mind it being a bit blinky, and potentially the noise of a very amorous young couple downstairs, then we're all okay. Apologies for the blinks. Ended up with 51 questions. Well, some of them are going to have to be saved. Apparently, I've made 10,000 subscribers, so I'm going to have to think of a thank you to say to everyone for reaching 10,000 subscribers. I do not know why this is blinking the whole time. As I said, it could be the autofocus. I've turned all the lights off though. Okay. Should I be worried that those people who drink an entire wine glass and go, I'm just having one glass? Hello, that's more than is in a bottle. Hello, right. So, hello, John Culver. Hello, Carl McGaswick. Hello, Jonathan Burrow. I will sort out the thank you for getting me to 10,000 subscribers when I get back. Hello, Domar. Hello, John Carl McGaswick. Hello, Nosmith. Hello, Nosdomo89. Sorry, I was thinking of the word Nosbet. I'm fine today. It is probably the mirror. It is probably the mirror causing it to autofocus. Let's see if we can't do a quick change around then. There's one advantage of being prepared to completely rearrange your hotel room at the blink of an eye, is that you can rearrange your hotel room at the blink of an eye. So, excuse me everyone, let's see if that stops the blinking. No, hasn't made any difference to the blinking at all. Still blinking. Well, I'm going to put it down as it's the phone. And I will sort that out when I get home, as they say. Hey. Oh. Right. No, I'm not going to watch any of this, and that's okay. Why weren't there 2 Argentine Rivadavia and 2 Brazilian manuscripts and not disposed of as obsolete 1920s? Why would they be? Okay, they are obsolete if you want to fight the British or the Royal Navy or the US Navy, but they don't want to fight the Royal Navy or the US Navy. They want to be able to fight each other. They're perfectly fine for doing that. I am not sure what the problem is, but I will have a conversation. Definitely before we go on the next trip, I will get a new phone. It's due for an upgrade anyway. I don't know. How are we all doing? How is everyone? I would like to say thank you for your support, because none of this would have been possible without your support. And frankly, I don't know how to say it. A whole month in Australia doing naval history pretty much. I fly home tomorrow. I get home on the 27th. I will have been away for 25 days. I know not quite 4 weeks, but still enough of a month that frankly I might as well have been out here for a month. Some exceptionally cool books. Gary Attacked Darwin. Only $48. For those not quite sure, I managed to get it with they actually gave me money off even that, and eventually I got it for roughly 20 quid, as in £20 once you convert, and it's pretty cool. As in here, meanwhile, a squadron of P-40Es of the 33rd Pursuit Squadron were making a long cross-continent flight from Amberley, near Brisbane, to Perth. The plan was to load them aboard the deck of the old carrier USS Langley at Fremantle and deliver them to Java. They reached Port Pirie in South Australia, where they received orders from ABDA Command to divert urgently to Darwin. So 15 P-40Es, under the experienced Major Floyd Pell, were on their way north to provide much-needed cover for the convoy, although Royal Australian Air Force Darwin had not been notified they were coming. Meanwhile, the convoy was steaming towards Timor, although trying to keep as south a route as possible during daylight. However, as Peary had experienced the day beforehand, long-range four-engined H-6K Mavis flying boats of the Tokyo Air Wing were now active in the area. Operating from the newly captured base at Ambon, they will now have the range to search the entire Timor Sea and would daringly approach the shipping channels just outside Darwin. Indeed, while the convoy was departing Darwin in the early hours, 5 H-6Ks were taking off to be over the search area in daylight. One aircraft was delayed by a couple of hours due to engine trouble. It was this aircraft, commanded by Sub-Lieutenant Miral, that spotted the convoy at 10:30 hours and commenced shadowing it. Staying out of gun range, there was nothing the convoy could do. 3 hours later, the flying boat made a bombing run on Houston, dropping a small 60-kilogram bomb that landed some distance away. Houston then radioed Darwin and requested fighter support. Both Buell and Ostrika were actively patrolling in their P-40Es over Darwin on this day, but for some reason, only Buell could be contacted by radio. He was directed to make an overwatch flight to find the convoy some 130 miles away. Buell managed to find the convoy, but could not sight the lurking flying boat. As an aid, Houston fired in the direction of the Mavis. This worked, and Buell sped over the convoy towards the enemy. What followed was a running duel of around 15 minutes as the flying boat ducked in and out of cloud cover. At one point, the flying boat emerged over the Houston once again and dropped further bombs, but without effect. Finally, Buell got close enough to get some good strikes on the enemy with his 50 cal machine guns. The flying boat caught fire. However, at the same time, Buell's fighter also took hits from the 20mm cannon mounted on the tail of the Mavis. Even the sturdy P-40 could not absorb hits from such a heavy caliber weapon, and Buell was killed as his fighter plunged into the sea in flames. The flying boat too was crippled, and the pilot managed to make successful ditching. Miral was among those killed, but a few of the crew survived and managed to take to a dinghy. None of those on board the convoy knew these details. All they saw was a bright flash of light and then black smoke on the horizon. Buell was the first man to die in the defense of Darwin, 4 days before the main carrier strike on 19th of February. It's a very good book. Let's go on. Is it accurate to say that the two André Doré class should never really have seen World War II and should have been scrapped along with the two surviving Comte de Cavours for the final two Littorios? Well, let's put it this way. Is it better to have those two ships or have nothing? That's your question. Because at the pace the Italians are building them, would they have had the content of the Littorios in time for World War II? No. So, yes, whilst in theory, for an idealized fleet fighting a war in, 1945, when Mussolini was hoping everything would be ready, yeah, they'd have been gone. But the trouble is, in 1945, they'd also been facing a fully equipped and fully armed up Royal Navy as well, let alone the other navies in the world. It's one of those things of, yes, by 1945, the Germans would have had some more ships available. Not that many more, actually, once you look at their progress to the yards. Might even have an aircraft carrier in service, because they might have finally sorted out that mess. The Regia Marina would probably have had at least one aircraft carrying service just to keep up with the French and to keep up with the Germans once they have them. Mussolini sorted out that particular mess as Minister of Air as well as Minister of Navy. So theoretically, he could sort out the mess, theoretically. But you have a look at the Royal Navy that would be in existence in 1945. And yeah, it's a case of, yeah, but the reality is the forces they'd be fighting will be just as interesting. Hello, Megasram. Demar, have you seen monuments made of land ships during the tour? I haven't seen many tank monuments. I've seen a few tanks. So using obsolete antiquated dreadnoughts was the best option they had. Yeah. Yes, Megastar, everyone's getting a flicking screen. I'm not sure why, but the camera seems to be flicking. I have no idea why it's doing it. I actually do have an idea. I have no idea why it's flicking. Why are you flicking, camera? It has been charging. It's Coke in a wine glass because I only had wine glass. It's fun. Anyway, we'll get on with the books. I have unplugged. And it's not fixed the problem. I'm not sure if it's the... Let's see. If I aim it over there, does that away from the... away? No, it's still flicking. Hold on. It's still flicking when in other camera mode. So I've turned on to the other camera, and it's apparently still blinking. It's still blinking. I have no idea why. I have no idea what is making it blink. Oh, let's see what the other does. Yeah, that's cola. I'm just insulting an entire generation of people by drinking it from a wine glass. It's Wi-Fi internet connection, so it could be that. No, Stummer. So who would win? Although I have paid for the supposed best Wi-Fi this hotel does. So who'd win, the Empire of Star Wars or the Imperium of Man from Warhammer? Oh, good lord. Okay, well, let's be honest, in the ground war, Space Marines are going to wipe out pretty much anything the Empire brings. I'd even put some money on the Imperial Guard versus Stormtroopers, but you know, that's the equivalence of Stormtrooper versus Space Marine. I'm going to put my money on the Space Marine. Um, Sith versus Custodes and Primarchs. There would be an interesting conversation of you have some Force Lightning. How cute. There are 24 of us and we're pelting you with a lot of weaponry. Yeah, I don't think that's going to necessarily work. The interesting thing is going to be the spaceships. In terms of the space engagements, that's going to be the interesting thing. They're actually not that dissimilar in terms of scale. Sheer number of ships. I think the Empire might have an edge over the Imperium in terms of sheer number of vessels, but I'm not 100% sure. Let's be honest, they didn't have a good track record of remembering to actually amass them when they needed them. Although they didn't think they needed them often, which is one of the problems of them not amassing them when they needed them. I would have to work this one out. I'd have to go for a lot more detail than I can go to here to work that one out. Listen, would be correct that HMS Warspite missiles were never being used as a nuke target. Honestly, the British were quite happy to let the Americans nuke their own ships to find out that data. Ay, caramba. I would expect the boarding parties would make a significant difference as well. Be really quite interesting a boarding party in that scenario. I could foresee a lot of people having a very scary experience. I could also foresee the various troops of Warhammer 40k going, this is nice. These people are easy. All of them could theoretically have been converted in 9681, or the Fiji subclass, Crown Colonies, guided missile cruiser converted. It's just going to be it's just a case of how much money you got. And that's the thing, you can convert any of those ships to that. It's a question of how much money you're willing to spend on it to do so. Enjoy, Richards. 40k do use boarding torpedoes, which would have an interesting impact. HMS Castlemaine. Richards. Now, this book's pretty darn cool, and I will say that a lot of times. Definitely say that a lot of times. North again. Within a few months, the ship was sent to North again, this time as a flotilla leader of a force operating out of Cairns and Townsville, whose prime task was to escort troop ships and supplies across the open waters of the Coral Sea to support the battle-weary troops in New Guinea. As the Indians pushed further up to the coast and along the new coast of New Guinea, the Castlemaine went too in support of Australian-American forces. This became a very busy period with very little rest for the ship and the crew. This according to Petty Officer James Bartlett, who the quote comes from. On the night of the 2nd December 1943, while proceeding as an additional escort for convoy QL-34 from Moreton Bay, a firm contact was made 2,500 yards astern of the convoy by Castlemaine's 272 radar. Putting about and following the radar blip, she closed 200 yards when an object was observed. Castlemaine prepared to ram. When she was 300 feet away, the target illuminated itself. It was a small US craft similar to the Australian motor launchers, and Castlemaine had just enough time to shear away, passing very close to Clarke's stern. The convoy proceeded to Townsville for oil and water before joining sister corvettes Katoomba and Lithgow, and US ships PC 1124, 1131, and SC 736 as escorts for convoy TN 8187 to Milne Bay, arriving on 10th December at 1100 hours. After oiling from RAF Bishopdale, they left Milne Bay at 1600 hours, escorting transports SS Katoomba and AIF troops for mainland leave. When they reached Fitzroy Island, Castlemaine departed for Cairns for refueling, then escorted convoy TN 190 to Milne Bay, arriving 16th December. While returning from Milne Bay by herself, Castlemaine received instructions at 2400 hours, that's midnight. I would normally call that 0000 hours, but you can call it 2400 hours if you want to, I suppose. On 18th November, to assist with stranded ships. I'd say it's 0000 hours on 19th November, or is it 24? Now I'm not sure. Is it 0000 hours on 19th November, or is it 0000 hours on the 18th November? But they're calling it 2400 hours. I'm not sure. That's why you don't use 2400 hours and 0000 hours. You use one or the other. You go from 2359 hours to 0000 hours as a rule. In November, to assist with stranded ships on the Bougainville Reef, putting about, they arrived at dawn on 19th December, which would suggest Milne Bay. She's going to Bougainville Reef. I would say that is 0000 hours on 19th December. So literally, that's what she does then. Where they found that 9 US ships of convoy TN 119 had all run aground on the reef. The convoy was being escorted by the corvettes Gladstone, which was also grounded, Gympie and Starwell. The rest of the convoy and escorts departed, and HMS Lithgow arrived to lend a hand. By 0800 hours on the 20th, the reef had been cleared of the stranded vessels, following a lot of hard work, dangerous work by 1st Lieutenant Williams and the crew. They worked for a day and a half amid broken tow lines on the aft deck, where the risk of injury or death in such circumstances was always present. With the US convoy safely afloat, Castlemaine continued to Cairns for fueling, then proceeded to Townsville, arriving 21st December. Next 5 days were spent cleaning a boiler. Ship ensigns had to go on. Time was taken out to celebrate Christmas from 1943. Pretty cool. I'm fairly well, I would say. Both my ears popped last night while landing, so they're still being fun today. They're mostly okay, but they're a bit sort of ugh. And of course, I'm going to fly again tomorrow, which is going to be fun for them. Nosduma 99. If Prince of Wales and Repulse had survived the air attack, how much of the effect would they have on the war in the Pacific? Well, ABDA Command now definitely becomes a Royal Navy Admiral in charge, because Tom Phillips is going to be the most senior officer out there, and he's in the bigger ships. So ABDA Command becomes a surface action task group based on 2 fast capital ships. You probably have them racing to send them a carrier. They were racing to send them a carrier anyway from the moment war was declared, but they would have been, at some point a carrier might have joined up, and well, things get interesting, because if you've got capital ships, etc. down there, then let's put it this way. If Japanese cruisers come down expecting to have a nice hunting fight with British and American cruisers, they'll find there is 15-inch guns and 14-inch guns ready to cause some significant emotional events. That's not what a Japanese 8-inch cruiser is designed to deal with. A Japanese 8-inch cruiser is designed to deluge en masse enemy cruisers and try and basically destroy them as quickly as they can. It's not designed to deal with what's coming for it, in terms of a 14-inch gun fast battleship and a 15-inch gun battlecruiser, even unmodernized battlecruiser. And that's before any significant reinforcements arrive, and there will be a significant reinforcement en route. There were. That's what forms the Indian Ocean Fleet, or rather the Eastern Fleet. Chris Peter Gaming, hello. Atros Warrior says hello. Hello, Warrior. It was wonderful meeting you in Sydney. I hope you got all the footage you needed from the Australian National Marathon Museum. They were spectacular. They were really, really nice. And yes, I think well, let's put it this way. We got all the footage we could get in the time allowed. I think we all agree that we would like more time there to get more footage. It's one of those things. There is only so many hours in the day, and there's only so much time you have. So no, it's a case of we got all the footage we could, but I would like more, and I'd like more time there. It's a wonderful museum. It's a wonderful museum in Sydney. As I've said before in several videos on our that you can see if you're a backer on the we've been doing backer updates videos pretty much every day of the trip, and they're put up on the website, on the ShipShape website, and you can go and find them. And as I said, it's a world-class museum. It's a reason to make the trip to Australia alone on its own. It's absolutely amazing. There are very few museums in the world of that level. There are very good museums out here, but it's going to sound strange. There are excellent museums out here, but there are very few museums. What I mean is, there are very few museums in the world of that level. The museums we've seen have all been pretty darn good. And I have to admit, the Australians do a good job with their museums, but there's a difference between saying something's a great museum and something's a great museum on a worldwide scale, if that makes sense. I would say that museum for me would feature very highly in the top 5 maritime museums, naval maritime museums in the world. And if I'm being honest, I'd say due to the breadth and scope of its collection and due to the quality of its presentation, the quality of its archives, the quality of its staff and its work, I would honestly place it as number 1 in the world. I don't know, would it be fair to say the only reason that the guided missile cruisers were saying the guns in case the missiles didn't work? No, because the guns tended to be quite a lot of pretty darn useful. You remember, also, you didn't necessarily carry a lot of rounds of missile ammunition. You still don't carry a lot of rounds of missile ammunition. So, let's put it this way. There are issues with VLS reloading at sea. There are issues with a lot of missile systems, base systems that you have to factor in. And this means that realistically, the guns are being kept mostly by that generation, because there's a lot of officers who've been through World War II, and they know what happens when you start to run out of firepower. And in the end, having something is always better than having nothing. So if I'm playing my ears more than usual, it's because they are still a bit. Hello, Dan. It's not as if the Imperium has to deal with something similar, but does the Empire have the ability to deal with void shielding? Be interesting. I wouldn't be surprised, actually, Megascrow, if you're slightly wrong. I think 40k would actually capture and reverse engineer some of the Xeno stuff, because, let's be honest, they always had a policy when it came with human empires, and they would consider this empire a largely human empire, to be useful. I am back in Perth, and I'm wondering where to go this evening for dinner. I've asked that on Twitter. I'm wondering what people are going to suggest. Currently, I'm considering the island pub again. Listen, how many Sea-Cat sound launchers could be fitted for five? Could be fitted for 5 twin 40mm Bofors, Mark 5 anti-aircraft guns? Well, they're supposed to theoretically be a 1-for-1 transition, so you could theoretically fit 5, but you wouldn't fit 5. You'd probably fit about 3 and leave 2 of the Bofors. Or fit 2 and leave 3 of the Bofors. I think from the basis you have to, in the nicest way, when you're doing such analysis of fleets, and I would always use it as an example to try and illustrate the issues of over specialization in terms of force structure and how differing opponents can cause you a huge amount of trouble. And there was always the idea that the Empire was actually building its forces to take on who are they? The ones beginning with V who come in after the Empire falls, and they were the great threat coming. But the fact is, it wouldn't have been very good for dealing with the Imperium, and the Imperium would have some issues dealing with some capabilities of the Empire. But you'd have to start as a basic assumption that both sides form of faster than light travel is going to work. Yushang Vong, yes. Yushang Vong. Could the Lion class battlecruiser like Tiger be not gone to 14-inch? I doubt as much for the Lions, but Tiger could have been, because Tiger's slightly fatter in terms of her turret barbette. Wait a minute, any good axe throwing spots in Perth? No, we haven't had any axe throwing, but also there's the trouble is that I'm the last one left in Perth. Hello. Thank you, lights. This is just because I sit down, you decide I'm not here. That's not fair. That's discriminating against the sedentary. I could have been reading. I will be reading shortly. Stop it. Currently, Gareth is flying back to Sydney and should be doing a Twitch stream from Sydney. And I'm in Perth, so we're opposite sides of Australia. I fly home. Well, I start my flight home tomorrow. I think Gareth starts his flight home on Tuesday. I think we're both going via Singapore. But we land there 2 days apart, and then I get into Heathrow at some point on Tuesday morning. I'm currently counting the swag now I'm home. You're enjoying that. You're enjoying the fact you're home. And hopefully your ears are functioning, because I went on a very old Qantas jet yesterday, and what can I say? The staff were lovely. It was not the widest of all jets in all time. And yeah, my ears are popped, because frankly, when the aircraft was this is how you can tell you sort of you go, hang on, is this a medical issue or what is it? And my ears popped not on takeoff but on landing. in the last 5 minutes before we landed, I would. Aaron, I have a tea, but my ears are playing up today. Feels like I've got earplugs in. Ding it home. Let's see everyone. When did the British realise days of flying boats were done? The days of flying boats were never done. It was just at a certain point, why have them and helicopters? They're still useful, but do you have in the world of infinite budget, you would have both, but in the world of finite budgets, you have to make a choice. Also, World Warships has the Georgia 6-gun, 18-inch armed Iowa variation. In your opinion, would that have been effective? And how would you design an 18-inch gun American battleship? Oh, I would have gone for a scaled-up Iowa of about. I'd have tried to go for 9 18-inch guns, honestly, if I'd been the Americans. That is their form. They do like to have 9-gun ships. Unfortunately, it hasn't been possible to record a special in-person episode of Build Trumps. Wait a minute. In your opinion, what is the highlight of the Australian War Memorial? That's really difficult to say because my highlight from the memorial as it currently stands, going around it, was definitely the Korean War. And when I say highlight, I mean the part that which really hit me most was the Korean War trench. That was really quite something. In sort of the museum part, the memorial at the top, there is something about the flame in the pool and looking out and being able to see both Australian Parliament buildings in direct line with you. That really does have something. But I'd say more, and this is more the thing I'm sort of thinking about. I would say myself, the thing that would affect me most is going around the ships and the stuff they're going to put in there from the naval side, and seeing what's going to be coming and going to be put in there once they finish the rebuilding and extension and rededication they're doing there. That's going to be good. All right. Secret Fleets. Fremantle's World War II submarine base. I've kept going back to Lin Can's book and I've been enjoying it a lot. There's a section in here. Let's see. 1943, Fremantle submarines at war. At the beginning of 1943, only 8 fleet-class submarines were operating out of Fremantle submarine base, compared to 12 in Task Force 72 at Brisbane. But 6 of the 8 set out on patrol during the first 2 months. The first to leave was Grenadier, which sailed on the 1st of January and sank 3 small vessels before returning to Fremantle on 20th of February. Grayling left on 7th of January for Philippine waters, sinking a cargo ship and a schooner during its patrol. Fresher returned from its previous patrol on 10th of January and sailed again on 25th. After making an unsuccessful attack on a Japanese submarine, Fresher reconnoitred Christmas Island, taking photographs of the facilities and gunner placements there, then sank 2 Japanese transports and the 5,232-ton tanker Tokemaru in the Flores Strait Flores Sea, before returning to Fremantle on 10th of March. Gar, Tamber, and Tutbog returned from patrol in January, but was soon ready to return to action. Gar set out on patrol 9th of February, and Tambor left on the 18th to carry out a special mission in the Philippines. On the 5th of March, the submarine landed a small Navy party on the southern Mindanao. Tortog left on 24th February for the Jarrow Sea and Makassar Strait area, where it accounted for a destroyer freighter and 3 small vessels. Gudgeon, which had gone to Brisbane in late 1942, returned on the 8th of February, after completing 2 special missions. 6 commandos were landed on Mindanao in the Philippines, and 28 men were rescued from Timor and transported to Fremantle. The base was soon to have a new commander. In January 1943, Rear Admiral English, commander of the Pacific Fleet submarines, died in an air crash. In the resulting reshuffle, Lockwood was promoted to Vice Admiral and given command of the base in Pearl Harbor. He left Fremantle during February. His replacement, Rear Admiral Ralph Christie, arrived sometime later and moved into Lockwood's quarters, known as the Bend of the Road. Fremantle's small fleet of submarines continued to enjoy some success. Gudgeon, leaving port on the 13th of March, encountered for some 15,000 tons of enemy shipping during a short patrol. Encountering a convoy on the 22nd, it sank Megan Mara, 5,434 tons, damaged two other ships, and added a 9,997-ton tanker, the Toko Maru, to its score before returning to Fremantle on 6th of April. On 9th of April, Grayling, which had departed on the 18th of March for its patrol area off the coast of Borneo, sank a cargo ship and damaged four other vessels. Trout left Fremantle on the 22nd of March to lay mines north of Borneo, and also sank two trawlers before returning on the 3rd of May. It's a really active force. I'm sure that was fun, Wayne, having a set 2 of 60 a set 2 Japanese torpedo boats, 60 Japanese torpedo boats. Hello, creative force. While Australia, did you make it to see seeing the only surviving German World War I tank landship Mephisto? No, I didn't, sadly enough. And no stomach, the standards before the hours, for the most part, were 10 to 12 gun ships. Wouldn't they want 10 to 12 rather than 9? No, once you're getting into 16-inch gun and 18-inch gun ships, and once you're getting into bigger forms, but also you're talking about a navy which they're building in 1930s, 1940s. Which, if you look at, you have to look at their heavy cruiser design. You have to look at their own capital ship design. 9-gun seems to be where they're happy. Yes, they have some which are 12, and they would like 12, but honestly, if you're going to build an 18-inch gun ship, you're probably going to go for 9 because of space. I'm not sure where you read some history now, 681. Sometimes I think you do find some very interesting parts of history on the internet. But what you've asked is it correct to say that the USA were neutral in World War I? They were neutral for the vast majority of World War I. That the Entente would have made plans for that if that happened? They did. They never planned on the Americans joining the war, actually. The Americans joining the war was rather nice when it happened, but it was more a case of as long as they had access to their markets and care. And as it said, Wall Street tried to demand debt repayment when World War I started. I don't think they did. There were some people who suggested they wanted that on in terms of Wall Street, but let's be honest, it's kind of like when you're looking for quotes from admirals. When you're looking at the sheer number of people who have the right title of manager or director who work in banks in Wall Street, there is rather a large number of them, and they've said a rather lot of things between them individually, let alone between them as a collective group. And you can always find one or two quotes from one saying something, and you can go, well, look at their titles, so they were important, so this must be the feeling of all of Wall Street from that title. And then you have to go through, and here you actually have to go through the whole lot, and you have to go, hang on, was this serious? No, it wasn't, because none of the key people were actually suggesting it. It was just some outliers getting some quotes going around. It happens. It helps. It does help to have a good deck gun to make up for the problem that I think torpedoes create mainly. Hello, Zosky. Well, for me, this is 5:30 in the evening. Maybe what something on. You could fit a lot of 18-inch guns if I was aspirational. Yeah, I'd say that's one thing. I had a great idea for an armor video to record in the shower, but I needed the shower you got in Perth Hiltons. Trouble is, this Hilton I'm staying in Perth is the only one which doesn't have that particular shower type. It's terrible. It has a regular normal shower. So disappointing. But I will find the right kind of shower to do it in. Dan Freeman, my brain and body have no idea what time it is, but are happy for me to be getting tea. Yeah, I have a feeling I'm going to be like that when I get back. Because, how do I put this politely? Uh, I get back and it's like sort of 8 a.m. in the morning. So I'm now going, they're going to have to be up all day. And I don't sleep, I don't sleep much as it is, but I don't sleep at all when I'm on planes. So, yeah, that's gonna be fun. I'm looking forward to that. I am really looking forward to that. Ah, no, redacted for YouTube chat. Yes, redacted for YouTube. We have to redact it for YouTube. Or Dan Freeman, if he was playing that live on a plane, will be entirely embarrassed. They told us that, and that's very interesting. What would the Pacific War would have been like if the Japanese had British technology and equivalent escort program? Could have been interesting. Could have been interesting. So, this Destroyer book is cool. And I know I've done it before. But, I've been enjoying reading through it. And I decided I was going to have a quick chat about Arunta as I saw her guns. She's a good looking tribal class destroyer, Arunta is. Now, on the 11th of November 1952, HMAS Arunta was recommissioned as an anti-submarine destroyer and spent her first year as such in Australian waters. In January 1954, she proceeded to Far East and spent 8 months as an Allied unit in the Korean patrol groups based in Japan. The first 4 months of 1955 were spent in home waters, mainly in the Sydney area, but in mid-May, she sailed once more for the Far East, this time accompanied by HMAS ships Anzac, Warramunga, Tobruk, and Quadrant. Together with HMNZS ships Black Prince and Pukaki. These vessels exercised the British Far East Fleet. Oh, come on! Excuse me? No, I haven't gone on to battery for. Thank you! This is discrimination against centrally inclined people. My favourite. This place just discriminates against you. Terrible. These vessels exercised with the British Far East Fleet in Malayan waters until the end of June. When Anzac Tobruk and Quadrant returned to Australia, HMS Arunta, however, was refitted at Singapore and then joined Warramunga, serves with the Commonwealth Strategic Reserve on the Far East Station, first Australian ships to do so. At the close of July 1955, Arunta sailed for Japan to exercise with the US units. She then returned to Malaya, relieved by Anzac and Tobruk. Arunta and Warramunga detached from the reserve and arrived back in Sydney on the 9th of December, just in time for Christmas. Except for a northern cruise in March, April, and a visit to Norfolk Island in June for the celebration landing there on the Pitcairn Islands, descended from the Bounty Wingers, Arunta spent 1956 in home waters. She arrived at Sydney on 14th of June, flying her paying off pennant, and was passed the dockyard hands on 25th September. To be prepared for Operation Reserve. In service, she'd steamed a total of 357,273 miles. 12 years later, on 1st November 1968, the gallant ship was told to scrap to the China Steel Corporation of Taipei, Taiwan. On 12th of February 1969, Arunta, the last ship of her class in the world, was towed out of the Sydney harbour by the Japanese tug Tokyo Maru, bound for the scrapyards. Shortly after clearing the heads, however, she began to take water, and tug crew was forced to watch helplessly as she capsized and sank, thus escaping an envious fate. Now, I would say she wasn't the last ship of her class in the world because this Haida is still around. But I know where they're coming from, but they are wrong. It's Haida. Nice one. People seem to have out US money in World War I. The Entente would have collapsed money-wise by 1718, but Germany were on the brink of mass starvation. Now it's on the brink. Now it's on the brink as well. The problem with that is it tends to overlook Canadian money and a large amount of other money coming from other places as well. I'm not going to say American money isn't useful because it is very, very useful. But would it have ended the war in 1917-18 for the Allies without it? No. Would it have possibly curtailed some of the stockpiling they were doing for other things, such as the offensives they launched, that maybe meant that they would be taking long to launch the offensives, so possibly leading to the Germans actually being forced to surrender due to starvation earlier? Potentially. So potentially you don't get the final offensive by the Allies. Because the Allies are still building up, because they're having to build up a slower pace without the American loans. But again, the point is, World War One, the Americans are not like they are in World War Two, and that's one of the problems. People look at Americans in World War Two and they transpose that back onto World War One. In World War Two, America is the arsenal of democracy, and that is a phrase without question. In terms of it's really easy to make a case for. But in World War One, the Americans arrive in Europe and they're basically re-equipped by the Allies because and this is, please don't, this is no reflection on American industry. This is no reflection on American ingenuity at all, or ideas, or anything like that. It's a reflection on the American government, the fact that they spent so little on defense that your industry the American industry had so little capacity to expand from, it couldn't expand in time to provide the resources that the American Expeditionary Force needed, which meant they had to buy from the Allies. Okay? So it's half of one and six of another. It's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other, really. Okay? It's a complicated scenario, Model 1. Where's what? There was a J-class submarine sitting apparently unloved and unwanted in Victoria. Mm-hmm. Sedatives don't work, but really work that well with me. I got myself a model of Darposa on this. When you'll be in Poland next year. She's parked just next to RP Bazanka and down here. Also, she was a sail ship for a cadet training. Cool. You should perhaps intersperse each question and answer with some burpees or star jumps to keep light from going off. I do my time in the gym, so I don't have to do that on camera. Australian War Memorial was cool. So, no, I don't think they're going to restore the J class in Victoria Harbour. Harrier. Always cool to pick up something as you're wandering around. And this is basically, it's a very cool book. It's lots of images, which is the nice thing. There were some really, you always have to remember the Harriers basically, it's kind of like the Type 45. It's the cheapest equivalent of what they're developing at the time, and they're going, do you really, we've got these better options. No, we'll go with the cheap. Yeah, it turns out pretty darn good, but it does make you think, what would have been the really good, the really advanced ones like? I want to show you all something. It's something which is going to scare many Americans. So you might, if the letters S C S in any way mean anything to you and you're a former US Navy, look away now. And when I say the word gingerbread, look back. But until I say the word gingerbread, don't. Okay? This is the British equivalent of the Sea Control Ship as developed by the lovely people of Thornycroft. Isn't that cute? 8 Sea Harriers. Always nice to get 8 Sea Harriers. And 2 helicopters. That was his plan. It's a it's an interesting plan, and it's an interesting capability. But yes, it's basically the British equivalent of the Sea Control Ship. Gingerbread. Dan Freeman, where did you get some of these? I mean, I only remember going to free aviation museums. Dan, the thing is, and I would say this with an open heart and full of love for you. You go to the loo a lot. Probably because, unlike me, you actually drink while you're wandering around. And while you're in the facilities, I'm in the museum shops. And often talking to the lovely volunteers who sometimes bring out books. Let's from is it odd that culture itself would be different about Vietnam or Korea? No, because culture is a product of history, and history is a product of culture in many regards. Serious, what damage did Romney's 24-inch torpedoes actually do to Bismarck? Because those are big torpedoes. Made big holes. Nosdoma 89. I recently saw a video by the history guy. Cool, he's very good. On HMIS Bengal and the MT Ondians account of a pair of Japanese commerce raiders. We heard a lot about German commerce raiding, but not much about Japanese commerce raiding. What can you tell us about that? Mainly because the Japanese efforts in it were, to an extent, half-hearted. When they did do it, it could be very, very effective because they could actually provide those commerce raiders with actual support and infrastructure. But the trouble is, the Japanese actually had a proper capable navy to support. And if they wanted to do commerce raiding, they could actually send the cruisers out to do it. So the question for the Japanese Navy is, by the time of supporting commerce raiding, what else has gone wrong? No, that was Hermes and the Thornycroft's equivalent of the Sea Control Ship. Sorry, America, says I gave you a panic attack hearing that word. 4 aviation museums. You forgot the one in Western Australia. Yeah, we did 2 in Sydney. We did the one in Western Australia. Where's your 4th one? Fourth one. Did we do one in Perth? Yes, we did. We did one. We did one in Britain. We did one while in Melbourne. So that's the 4th one. Yeah, we did 4. Macro, he's a British historian training British museums. That's how. No, 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 no. I have other skills. Look, please note, I am the only boy in 40 cousins, as I said many, many times. And I love them dearly. But I have learned some skills of them. One of them is their ability to find stuff when shopping and to get even the most firmly firmly rule-abiding um, person you've ever met of shop assistants to turn around and go and find them something from the back. I have watched their skills over many years, and I have learned. And therefore, I have, whilst I would say not developed equivalent skills, I have developed variations of those skills myself, which I adapt for moments when I need them. In other words, I've spent a lot of time shopping and carrying bags for people shopping. I have paid attention. Enjoy, Albert. Clarke and Mini, was the English Electric Canberra given that name for the boats of getting Australian sales? Sadly, no. The last book, Lloyd's List. 250th anniversary special supplement. And this is a cool thing to get hold of. It's a very cool thing to get hold of. God, my hearing feels weird at the moment, excuse the French. It's like on one side, I can hear myself fine and normal on this side. On this side, it's like hearing it through some sort of muffled thing. The liner system evolved where there were dependable cargoes being carried on predictable routes between the previous announced ports. Criteria varied according to age. In the days of sail, 60 or even 80 lay days would not necessarily disqualify trade, even if it never used the term liner. Under previous announced ports, one might have to substitute the previously announced coast. The East India trade certainly showed elements of the liner concept from the 17th century up to the 1830s. Indeed, given the monopoly of the East India Company, it represented the conference system in the extreme, but the North American and West Indian trades also had many of the complex and predictable features of the liner business. The first surviving issue of Lloyd's List for January 2nd, 1740, shows how developed the American system was, with vessels on the outward leg also calling at court to load dairy products for the colonists. The convoy system of the 18th and early 19th centuries similarly encouraged the predictable passage of vessels, but the Zenith Westmanger from Bordeaux to Bremen was wrecked off Boulogne for the 1st of January. The captain drowned. The Clementina Nolan from Virginia to Bordeaux is totally lost on the rock of Chesral. Some of the crew drowned. Moving on from drowning of Captain Westmanger and those unnamed seamen from Clementina, reported in Lloyd's List of January 6th, 1789, we come to April 17th, 1827. Ilfracombe, 12th of April. The Eclipse Davies from London to Bristol, upset this morning to the eastward in a squall, and nearly sunk, only one man saved. Donegal, 13th of April. A sloop of about 80 tons laden with rum and sugar was driven on shore yesterday morning near Rutland. During the most severe storm of the wind, rain, and hail experienced this season. The cargo expected to be saved. Steam the Key. So long as ships were subject to the vagrancies of wind and the sea in this manner, and the last quoted vessel was evidently in the West Indian trade, the liner system was stunted. It was not just a question of storms and wrecks, but often merely of waiting for a sailing wind. The coming of steam made possible the modern liner system. In a wider sense, too, the Industrial Revolution with its mechanized output, a demand for rapid transit, helped in another way to create the liner system. Steam, with its great reliability, also promoted mass movement of people across the Earth, so the liner became incorrectly a popular synonym for passenger liner. The sailing vessels of the middle of the 19th century certainly aimed at the sailors of the liner, and technical development of the sailing ship is sometimes overlooked, just as that of the steam locomotive was often disregarded. The composite-built clipper was not at all the same vessel as those sailing ships recorded in the 18th century Lloyd's List. Indeed, the first advertisements in Lloyd's List for shipping companies claiming to be lines on the first day of advertising on the January 2nd, 1851 were almost exclusively for those that were sailing vessels. Among the advertisers were Henry H. Willis and Company's line of packets, established 1843, fine, first-class, full-poop vessels, experienced surgeons and commanders well acquainted with New Zealand colonies. The scales of dietary are most liberal. Picknell Brothers, Hall Brothers, John Liggett and Sons, and the River Plate line were among the sailing ship lines. From the recent establishment of sailing line companies, Hall's line of clipper-built Australian packets was established in 1848. It is clear that liner business was not just created as a response to steam. At first, at least, improved sailing technology helped, but as steam became still more powerful and reliable, and as passengers were moved from a poop that was made to vibrate by the screw, steam began to dominate the liner trades. The warning was there in 1854 issue. The first announcement was for steam to near Vida Cape. The following ships of the General Screw Steam Shipping Company will leave Southampton for Calcutta on the 14th of every month, calling at Plymouth for the mails and touching at the Cape Mauritius, Ceylon, and Madras. There was a steamship confidence in that 14th of the month, but significantly, the steamer company did not call itself a line. That was left for the moment to the sailing companies. That was enough to say you had steamers. It's fun. Darren, I thought I would have got it if you didn't. There was never any chance of me not getting it, considering where my family worked. Oh, for goodness sake. I'm not that sedentary. I'm moving. I'm talking. I'm thinking and breathing. What is it you have against sedentary people? What? Surely you should be on a time socket so that you only do that late at night, not in the middle of the day. Is there a camera in Britain? Nope. But there's all sorts of weird things in British history. Yeah, the thing about the English Electric and calling it the Canberra was they were naming it for places, but let's put it this way. I don't think it was named, and Australia was its first export customer, but I don't think it was necessarily named Canberra to get their exports. I don't think that was part of the process. And I'm going to disagree with Wikipedia on this one. Thank you, Nosdom 8209. Yeah, this is the reason. This is the reason I'm doing this at this time, so I can get this. I'm planning on being done by 6 o'clock, which is 9 minutes time, so I can go out and try and get some food before everyone closes for the night. So we've got about 9 minutes more to chat. Any questions? And the reason I say 9 minutes more is because then it's going to be 6 o'clock, and then I can go out and get, some food. Oh, caramba. How is everyone doing? My friend, which one of the fluffy assistants will most likely to greet you first, most enthusiastically? I think it will be a draw, but I think it'll be a draw for the reason of that my sister hasn't been that well for the last few days, so they won't have been walked at all for a few days before I get home. So they are probably going to be equally charging me, but more likely they'll be carrying leads in their mouths and going, "Papa, good to see you. Yes, I brought my lead." You know what to do, Papa. You know what to do. Nice one. So, is it practical to use the aviation safety network when trying to work out how many types of aircraft the Navy or Air Force has left by the time of its retirement? It's a starting point. It is a starting point. It's not an ending point, but it's a starting point. Dermot, what is your opinion on the general usefulness of the seaplane carrier HMS Albatross? Well, when she's called Ark Royal, she's fairly useful in World War One. When she's called Albatross in World War Two, she's pretty darn useful when she's used right as well. Basically, consider a seaplane carrier like a mobile naval air base for seaplanes. You take it to a place, you operate the seaplanes. That's when it's most useful. You can basically moor it up anywhere and use it as the hub for the base, and you can move it so it keeps up with forces, so you can keep those seaplanes operating. Have I checked for a 24-hour pancake place? This is Perth, Dan. Of course I've checked for a 24-hour pancake place. Haven't found one at the moment. Albatross was the Ark Royal, which was then given to Australians, and then the Australians gave it back to the British. The first live from my office is going to be Sunday. Ark Royal 1 became Pegasus. Oh, yes, it did. HMS Albatross. Yeah, I'm getting my Pegasus and Albatross confused, but still pretty useful ship. Apologies on that one. Blame the fact I've been going all sorts of weird places for the last month, and that I have to apparently finish this at 6 o'clock so that I can actually get food this evening because all the restaurants seem to close. Other than the Island Bar, which is where is my backup option for if I need to go out later. And Dan will know exactly where I mean by the Island Bar because it's a very nice place, but it's the only one which seems to be open till 10 o'clock. I'm not sure if it serves food till 10 o'clock. I think it serves only food. It only serves food till about 8. Devil Albatross was built at Cockatoo Island. Cool. I will do a video about Albatross at some point to make up for the fact I got it confused with Pegasus. Yeah, it's currently it's nearly 6 o'clock on the 25th my time. Hi, Steve. Lots about Catalina's, definitely. Not much so much about the mining operations in the Pacific during World War II. A little bit, but not much. I've already checked about the island. Don't worry, Google. Don't worry, Dan Truman. As I said, they're open till 10, but I think that then they stop serving food at 8. Not 989. What's the difference between a submarine tender and a destroyer tender, or the same thing, just serving different type of ship? Same thing in principle, serving different type of ship, and they therefore have a very different fit to service the needs of those different types of ships. Although both would tend to have rather large amounts of torpedo storage. We just didn't manage to pull it together. Like we didn't manage to get Jamie. We didn't manage to meet up with Jamie, and that's the real sad thing. I was looking forward to meeting up with Jamie, and it didn't work out. It's sad, but it didn't happen. Life sometimes works out that way. However, I am checked in on my app to my flight tomorrow, and so I'm all set up, and yeah, all good for heading back to the UK. I do love. I've been talking about hearing issues on the video, and I've suddenly had an email come through into my spam of going, hearing solutions. I don't know. Take care, Stevens. Right. Thank you very much, everyone. It is literally 17:59 hours my time, 10:59 hours in the UK, and goodness knows what time it is elsewhere. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed this one, and thank you again for your support. Trust me, I couldn't have afforded to do this all without you, and I definitely couldn't. We couldn't have afforded to do this at all without your support. Frankly, it's been amazing. We hope you're going to enjoy all the history that's going to come out of it. It doesn't matter if you supported Shipshape or not. We hope you're going to enjoy the history that comes out of it, and there is going to be a lot of history which comes out of it. And when I say a lot of history, I mean a lot of history is coming out of it. We have done a lot of recording. I've just got it now open in front of me off to one side, and the data saved by me alone, this is just me, not including all the stuff compiled by Dan, by Gareth, and by Drac, by me alone is 250 gigabytes of data. So 250 gigabytes of pictures and videos have been I have uploaded and stored. And I think I've still got a drive to upload. I think I've got to do that at some point from my little camera. Jamie's in Adelaide, so we were hoping he was going to be able to come see us, but life didn't work out. Any thoughts on what to have? I'm probably going to hunt for a burger. We did Western Australia, Victoria, Queensland, New South Wales, yes. We did basically we managed to go to Perth, Melbourne, Brisbane, Sydney, Canberra. Take care, Steve Clarke. Noonan in the Netherlands. Enjoy. Nicer. Enjoy your long haul flight home. I will do. They are big. Distances are big. I have questions on the Watu video for you. Yes, and I do know there are certain videos which people would like me to re-record. Hopefully, the illustrious one tonight won't be one of them. Right, because that's about 2 hours long. Take care, everyone. Thank you for watching. Thank you again for all your support. And thank you, John Culver, Great Dominion, Steve Clarke, Dan Freeman. Thank you, everyone. Dan, it'll be good to see you when I get home. And, well, yeah, thank you, everyone. Right, let's see what we can do on this. Bye, everyone. Take care. I know you'll sort of, if you've been watching my updates, you'll have seen many profiles of hotel rooms. Well, this is going to give you a profile which you might not want to think about. But that's the swimming pool, which I'll be using for exercise and to try and hopefully reset my ears. Seems to be a bit windy out there, but I think I can do it. Take care, everyone. Toodles.